To East Africa now, where Kenyans are voting largely peacefully in the country's presidential election. The country is hoping for an orderly transition to power after almost a decade under President Uhuru Kenyatta. Deputy President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga are going head-to-head for the presidency. For more updates, we've got our Kenya correspondent Isabel Nakirya, who joins us now. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Isabel. Maybe just give us the very latest in terms of the level of peacefulness we are seeing with people out in the streets voting. Are we nearing the end of the voting day, or are we still really in the thick of it?
Thank you. Unlike the previous elections that have been marred by violence, this year's elections have largely been peaceful. It's just about 1 hour away to the close of the voting, and the last updates were at 9 GMT by the Electoral Commission, and they say that about 6.5 million voters had cast their votes by that time. That is about 30% of the 22 million voters that have registered to vote in Kenya. They also said that there has been a problematic electoral voting system that failed in some areas in Kenya, with the Electoral Commission cancelling the electronic voting in those areas and switching to the manual system. Of course, this kind of system was amended before, and so the courts agreed it, and so around 230 polling stations had to use the manual system. The Electoral Commission also said that in those areas voting could be extended. The presiding officers had been asked to extend the voting to allow all the voters time to vote. We also understand that there have been some security concerns in some pockets around Kenya, especially around the Dadaab refugee settlement, which by 12 noon, that is 9 GMT, voting had not started. The Electoral Commission says in such areas, the security system, the security organs are dealing with those concerns, and that voting, that people would be given time to vote or extended maybe until tomorrow. And so we also know that by close of voting, which is in about 6 o'clock today, voting may stop and the counting will begin immediately. But the voting has largely been peaceful in many areas of Kenya.
Isabel, I'm interested to know if there have been any fears from the Electoral Commission in Kenya around corruption in the voting system and perhaps vote rigging or any other malfeasance of that nature, or are they confident that this is truly a fair election?
Compared to the previous elections where there were concerns about the Electoral Commission having some irregularities with its system, this time the Commission made it possible to amend that guideline in their rules to have the manual system done in case this failed. This is to, of course, correct that irregularity which led to some of the cancellation of the election in 2017. But we've had some pockets of insecurity where there were some people arrested with voting cards in some areas, and they say that the security organs are dealing with that. Largely, we've not had any other, pockets of insecurity. It's been largely peaceful.
Right, and of course this is going to be quite the interesting transition, Isabel, as Uhuru Kenyatta steps down after 10 years being the leader of Kenya. That transition is going to be an interesting one because whoever wins this election comes in at a time of great economic difficulty for citizens across sub-Saharan Africa.
Right from the campaigns to the run-up to the elections, we've seen a very tense election between the two front-runners, that is Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And of course, both candidates command a very huge following in Kenya. But one thing that is very unique about this year's elections is that it's not running along ethnic lines like the previous elections. Both candidates do not come from, you know, the significantly influential tribe of the Kikuyu in Kenya, where many of the candidates, the presidential candidates in the past, have come from. So it's very difficult to tell whether Ruto or Odinga will win the election, but past polls, opinion polls, have suggested that Raila Odinga is winning by an edge. And we've also seen that both candidates have chosen running mates from the Kikuyu tribe, which is a very significant, influential tribe in Kenya, with taking many of the seats in parliament, in the political arena, economic and cultural sense. And so it's going to be a very tense time for both candidates to kind of know who is going to take this race.
And then once the voting has concluded, Isabel, do you have a sense or a direction that will be taken in terms of the counting of the votes and the announcement of the country's new president? Yes,
voting is expected, counting is expected to go on throughout the week. They say the new president will be announced probably by the end of this week. We also know that the Electoral Commission will also, both candidates should at least get 50% or 50+1 of the vote, and at least 25% on all the 24 counties in the country to be able to be pronounced the winner, or else a rerun could be announced.
Finally, and very briefly, Isabel, if you could, are there any concerns of the voter turnout at this particular election? We had our local government elections in November last year, and there were grave concerns about people being despondent and not bothering to head to the polls. Is that the same situation in Kenya?
The situation in Kenya is a little bit different this time round. We are told by 6 a.m. when voting opened, the lines, the queues were very long, extending kilometers out of the polling stations. And so many people were eager to vote and excited to cast their votes in a largely peaceful election compared to the previous elections. And by around 3 o'clock today, some polling stations were actually empty. Over 70% of people had already voted, and they were just waiting for a few people who were remaining before counting begins. And I believe by now counting has started in many counties.
Thank you very much. That is our correspondent Isabel Nakirya joining us from Uganda, speaking about the Kenyan elections that are currently underway, and of course a new president set to take over that state after 10 years in power, and I'm talking there about Uhuru Kenyatta.